The young cashier rolls her eyes as she stares at the old man's prosthetic arm reaching for his wallet. "Sir, can you please move faster? There's a line behind you." 82-year-old Frank Martinez stays silent, his weathered hand trembling slightly as curious shoppers gather to watch, unaware of the Congressional Medal of Honor tattooed beneath his sleeve. What happens next will leave you speechless. Hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments, how would you have reacted? In this situation, Frank Martinez stood at the checkout counter of the local grocery store, his prosthetic left arm moving slowly as he tried to pull his wallet from his jacket pocket. The mechanical fingers didn't work like they used to, and the battery was running low. He'd been meaning to charge it, but these days, simple tasks took longer than they should. The cashier, a girl who couldn't be more than 20, tapped her bright pink nails on the counter. Her name tag read Jessica, and she had the kind of impatient look that young people get when they think the world should move at their speed. "Come on, old man," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I don't have all day." The line behind Frank was growing longer. A woman with 2 screaming kids shifted from foot to foot. A businessman in an expensive suit checked his watch repeatedly. A group of teenagers whispered and pointed at Frank's prosthetic arm, giggling behind their hands. Frank's real hand finally found his wallet, but his fingers were stiff with arthritis. The leather was worn smooth from decades of use, and the bills inside were crumpled and hard to separate. He pulled out a $20 bill for his groceries, but it slipped from his grip and floated to the floor. "Oh, for crying out loud," Jessica said, rolling her eyes so hard they might have fallen out. "Are you kidding me right now?" The businessman behind Frank let out a loud sigh. "Some of us have real jobs to get to," he announced to the growing crowd. Frank bent down slowly, his old knees protesting with each movement. His prosthetic arm made a soft whirring sound as he tried to pick up the bill, but the mechanical fingers couldn't grip it properly. He tried again and again, while the entire line watched in uncomfortable silence. "This is ridiculous," said the woman with the kids. "Management should do something about this." A small crowd had gathered now, drawn by the commotion. Some people looked sympathetic, but most just seemed annoyed. A few pulled out their phones, and Frank could see them starting to record. Jessica leaned over the counter, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Sir, maybe you should shop when it's less busy? Like during senior hours or something." Frank's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He finally managed to pick up the 20 with his good hand and placed it on the counter. His movements were deliberate and calm, but anyone paying attention could see the tension in his shoulders. "The mechanical arm isn't even working right," Jessica continued, speaking to her coworker at the next register. "Like, if you can't use it, why wear it?" The teenager behind the businessman started laughing. "Dude, it's like a robot arm," he said to his friend. "But it's broken." Frank's prosthetic arm had been with him for 60 years. He'd learned to use it after losing his real arm in Vietnam during a mission that saved the lives of 12 soldiers. The same mission that earned him the Congressional Medal of Honor. The same mission that gave him nightmares for decades. But these people didn't know that. They just saw an old man who was slowing down their day. "Maybe he should just use the self-checkout," suggested the woman with the kids. "Those are made for people who can't handle regular checkout." The businessman stepped forward, his patience completely gone. "Look, buddy, some of us have important meetings. Can you just pay and move along?" Frank turned slightly, his gray eyes meeting the businessman's angry stare. The old veteran's face was calm, but there was something in his expression that made the businessman take a small step back. "I'm trying," Frank said quietly. His voice was steady, but the words carried weight that most people in the store couldn't understand. Jessica snatched the 20 from the counter with unnecessary force. "Whatever," she muttered. punching buttons on the register harder than needed. "Your change is $6.37. She counted the change into Frank's good hand with exaggerated slowness, making sure everyone could see how much trouble he was causing. The coins clinked as she dropped them one by one, and a few fell to the floor. "Seriously?" she said, watching the coins roll away. "This is exactly what I'm talking about." The crowd was getting restless. More people had joined the line, and word was spreading through the store about the old man with the broken robot arm who was holding everyone up. Frank could hear the whispers and feel the stares as he slowly bent to collect the fallen coins. A store manager appeared, drawn by the commotion. He was a thin man in his 30s, with a nervous smile and a tie that was too tight. "What seems to be the problem here?" Jessica pointed at Frank with her thumb. "This customer is taking forever, and his prosthetic thing isn't working right. It's holding up the whole line." The manager looked at Frank, then at the growing crowd of impatient shoppers. "Sir," he said in a voice that was trying to be polite but wasn't quite succeeding, "maybe there's a way we can speed this up." Frank straightened. Slowly, his full height more impressive than most people expected. Even at 82, he still carried himself like the soldier he'd once been. The coins were finally in his palm, and he was ready to leave. But then Jessica made one more comment that changed everything. She said to the manager, loud enough for everyone to hear, "If you can't function in public, maybe you shouldn't be out shopping alone. There are services for people like that." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Frank's good hand slowly moved to his right shoulder, where the sleeve of his jacket covered a tattoo that few people had ever seen. It was a simple design, but it represented the highest honor any soldier could receive. The Congressional Medal of Honor tattoo had been inked into his skin 40 years ago, a permanent reminder of the day he'd thrown himself on a grenade to save his unit, the day he'd lost his arm but saved 12 lives, the day he'd proven that heroism wasn't about being perfect or fast or convenient for other people. Frank looked at Jessica, then at the manager, then at the crowd of people who had been judging him. His voice was still quiet, but now it carried the authority of someone who had faced real challenges and survived them. "Young lady," he said, his gray eyes never leaving Jessica's face, "I've been functioning just fine for 82 years. I lost this arm in Vietnam, saving the lives of 12 soldiers. I've raised 3 children, worked for 40 years, and served my country with honor." The store went quiet. Even the teenagers stopped giggling. The businessman's phone slowly lowered from his ear. Frank continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. "This prosthetic arm has helped me build houses, change diapers, and hold my grandchildren. It's not broken. It's old, just like me. And both of us have earned the right to take our time." Jessica's face had gone pale. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. The manager stepped forward, suddenly realizing that this wasn't just any customer complaint. "Sir, I'm so sorry. There's been a misunderstanding." But Frank wasn't done. He slowly rolled up his right sleeve, revealing the tattoo that had been hidden beneath the fabric. The Congressional Medal of Honor design was small but unmistakable, with the date and location of his service clearly visible. The entire store seemed to hold its breath. The businessman's expensive suit suddenly didn't seem so important. The woman with the screaming kids had gone completely silent. Even the teenagers were staring with wide eyes. Frank's voice was steady and calm as he spoke to the crowd. "This tattoo represents the highest honor our country can give to a soldier. I received it for actions above and beyond the call of duty. I nearly died earning it, and I lost my arm in the process." He looked directly at Jessica, who was now trembling behind the counter. "But what I didn't lose was my dignity, my right to be treated with respect, or my place in this community." The manager was frantically trying to figure out how to fix the situation. "Sir, Please, let me comp your groceries. This is completely unacceptable. Frank shook his head slowly. I don't need charity. I need people to remember that everyone you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about. Everyone deserves basic human kindness. He turned to address the crowd that had gathered. Each of you made assumptions about me today. You saw an old man with a prosthetic arm, and you decided I was an inconvenience. You never considered that I might have stories to tell, wisdom to share, or sacrifices I've made for this country. The businessman stepped forward, his face red with embarrassment. Sir, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Frank nodded slowly. Most people don't. That's the point. We're all just people trying to get through our days. Some of us need a little more time, a little more patience. That doesn't make us less valuable. Jessica finally found her voice, though it was barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said, tears starting to form in her eyes. I didn't know. Frank's expression softened slightly. Now you do. And maybe next time you'll think twice before judging someone based on what you can see on the surface. The crowd began to disperse, many people looking ashamed of their earlier reactions. The businessman helped Frank with his groceries, insisting on carrying them to his car. The woman with the kids apologized quietly as she passed as Frank walked toward the exit. The manager caught up with him. Sir, I want you to know that Jessica will be written up for this. Her behavior was completely inappropriate. Frank paused at the door, considering his words carefully. She's young, he said finally. She made a mistake. Make sure she learns from it, but don't destroy her future over it. We all deserve second chances. The manager nodded, clearly impressed by Frank's grace under pressure. As Frank made his way to his car, he reflected on the day's events. The prosthetic arm that had caused so much trouble was the same arm that had allowed him to live a full life after his injury. It wasn't perfect, but it had been enough. He thought about the soldiers he'd saved that day in Vietnam, how they'd gone on to live their own lives, raise their own families. Some of them had probably faced their own struggles with aging, with disabilities, with the simple challenges of getting older in a world that seemed to move faster every day. Frank started his car and drove home, where his wife of 55 years was waiting with dinner and a patient smile. She'd ask about his day, and he'd tell her about the store, about the young cashier who'd learned an important lesson, about the crowd that had judged too quickly. But mostly, he'd tell her what he told her every day, that he was grateful for the life he'd lived, the people he'd saved, and the chance to keep making a difference in the world. One interaction at a time. The Congressional Medal of Honor tattoo was hidden again beneath his sleeve, but its meaning remained as clear as the day he'd earned it. Heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes they're standing right in front of you, waiting patiently in line at the grocery store.